I'll handle the inheritance distribution. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. Right after coming home from my mother's funeral, I was stunned by the unbelievable words spoken by Danny. Seething with anger after being presented with 2 papers on the table, and rushed for a response by Danny, I decided to divorce him. Sure. Danny, who had expected me to meekly agree to his proposal, was confused by my response. Without a second glance at him, I left the house we had lived in for many years and set out to execute a certain plan. My name is Kate Hansen, I'm 30 years old. I'm a housewife, married for 5 years to my husband Danny, who is 5 years my senior and works at a local bank. These 5 years have been hellish for me. Danny is the bottom of the barrel at work, lacking motivation and believing that as long as he meets his quotas, nothing else matters. This attitude has made him an outcast at his workplace. Seriously, only fools work hard. It's smarter to relax and not stress over work, right? When I went to pick up a drunken Danny from a company drinking party, I was speechless to see him making pitiful statements to a junior colleague. Despite sounding like he was succeeding at work, I, who had been informed by his colleagues about his poor work attitude, was appalled to hear him speak. Danny, who never commits to anything, ridicules those who earnestly try their best. He's only interested in getting through the days with minimal effort, and mocks the idea of striving for promotion. With no ambition or passion, he's mocked by his colleagues and juniors. Seen as a future dead-end employee, I ended up being his outlet for stress. I'm a self-employed artist. Danny once respected my profession. However, his attitude changed drastically when he found out about my annual income after we got married. Realizing that being an artist wasn't lucrative, he began to look down on me. It's amazing you dare say you're an artist for a living with such a low income. Your art skills are barely amateur level, just a hobbyist at best. During our dating phase, he praised my art, but after marriage, he has been disparaging my work. On days he faces unpleasantness at work, he takes it out on me, sighing the moment he sees my face. Must be nice, having an easy job. I have to suffer daily, nagged by my annoying boss. Why don't you do something that actually contributes to our income? The repeated demeaning comments gradually made me lose confidence in my art. However, the support from customers who needed my art kept me going. When I gave your painting to my husband for his birthday, he was thrilled. Such comments from clients, including parents choosing my work as gifts for their children, have allowed me to continue in this profession. My workspace was often our home's living room, which is sunny and airy. The house, bought by my mother for me, is designed to help me focus on my art, especially in the living room where I love to draw. Just being outside or looking at the scenery from the window can inspire great ideas. However, Danny has increasingly encroached on this sanctuary of mine. Can't you see I'm working? You might be off, but I'm busy with commissioned pieces. If you're going to be snide, please leave. It's distracting. Danny seemed to only come to the living room when I was working, usually to vent about work or to make snide remarks at me. It's become disruptive to my work, and I've had to ask him to leave. To which he responds with a mocking smile. What's with that attitude towards your husband who's off work? Who do you think you're living thanks to? Despite not earning much himself, Danny always used the fact that my annual income was lower than his as a weapon against me. This behavior started after I made the mistake of opening a savings account with him as my account manager. He learned about my earnings and savings, and his treatment of me changed drastically, as if he were a different person before we got married. I thought you lived a more affluent life, but it turns out only your mother was competent. You're completely useless. Your mother must have been so disappointed. She wanted you to take over the company, but ended up having to leave it to someone else because her daughter turned out to be unreliable. I hated him for belittling and mocking me because my income was lower than his. However, as he said, I am currently living a life doing what I love. If I wanted to be filial, I should have taken the lead in running the company openly. But after discussing it with my mother, I chose not to follow that path. You should live freely. I don't want you to walk the path laid out by your parents. Do what you love and devote yourself to it. I want to support your actions. I indulged in my mother's words and pursued my current path. However, the more I tried to convey my feelings to him, the uglier our arguments became, wasting my energy. Thinking it was foolish to continue, I stopped responding to him from that day on. Letting his words go in one ear and out the other was the least mentally taxing approach I learned over the years. When Danny realized he wasn't getting a response from me, he would click his tongue and return to his room. Since ignoring him resolved the issue, I continued to let his words wash over me until a sudden event changed everything. My mother, who was in a facility, passed away. My mother was the president of a major car manufacturer with over 7,000 employees. Known as the most popular car manufacturer in the US at the time. There was no one in the industry who didn't know her name. When I was 28, my mother resigned as president, planning for a generational change to let me take over. However, knowing I was focused on painting, she entrusted the company to my best friend, Sarah Manning. Sarah and I were best friends and childhood friends, living like family in the same neighborhood, and my mother trusted her. However, Danny was unaware of this fact. Sarah had asked me not to tell Danny that we were best friends. I was hesitant to tell you about our school days. But listening to your recent stories, I thought it was better to let you know. Sarah told me about Danny from our high school days. They were in different classes, but knew of each other. Danny was notorious for being a troublemaker. You know, there's always that one person in class who disrupts lessons and enjoys teasing the teacher. That's your husband. I wasn't in the same class, so I never saw it firsthand, but I heard plenty from friends. Sarah made sure to visit our home when Danny wasn't around, since she had changed her surname after getting married. Danny, even if he saw her at the wedding, didn't recognize her as a high school classmate. Thanks to this, Danny is still unaware of my relationship with Sarah. I've told him I have a close female friend, but he seems uninterested in anything but money. Just do whatever. That was the end of the conversation, and he never asked about Sarah. I heard rumors about him being greedy for money back then. Some people complained that he hadn't returned the money he borrowed. So I wondered if you were okay. But since he's working at a bank and providing for the house, I thought it wasn't necessary to say anything. But I still have a negative impression of him. That's why I asked you to keep quiet about me. I don't want to be bothered if he starts asking for money. Listening to Sarah speak with a troubled smile, I sighed. Before marrying Danny, I never sensed such a side to him. Instead, he seemed like a sincere, good-natured young man, likely to be well received by parents. That was my first impression of him. We met when Danny visited an exhibition where I was displaying my work. At the time, I was struggling with my art, feeling stuck and losing confidence. Wondering whether I should continue, I painted every day amidst these doubts. Danny spent hours looking at one of my paintings during those difficult times. You've been looking at that painting for a while, haven't you? While other paintings were garnering interest from customers, there was one that went unnoticed by everyone except for Danny, who was mesmerized by it for hours. Curious, I couldn't help but approach him. Is that bad? No, not at all. I was just wondering why you've been looking at that painting for so long. Danny lacked a sense of aesthetics. Yet, it was perhaps because of this lack that he expressed the following thoughts. I don't know. Honestly, I have no interest in art, but somehow, I can't take my eyes off this painting. Even when my friend who brought me here told me it was time to leave, I couldn't move from this spot. I'm drawn to it. I feel like the person who painted this must have gone through a lot of pain and struggle, repeatedly redoing it. I don't know why, but that's what I thought, and I couldn't move. It's funny, isn't it? A guy who doesn't understand art talking like this. Seeing Danny scratch the back of his head with a bitter smile, I felt genuinely drawn to him. His words, coming from someone who knew nothing about art, were incredibly validating for me. Knowing that someone understood the turmoil I put into my work was the most wonderful feeling. Before I knew it, I found myself revealing that I was the artist. This revelation became the starting point of our interaction. Danny, who initially had no interest in art, began attending every exhibition where I displayed my paintings. Could I visit your studio sometime? I'd really like to see you paint. I was thrilled that he took an interest in me. In turn, I became interested in him, and eventually, I invited him to my home. Then, he confessed his feelings to me. I want to continue watching you paint freely by my side. I had never met a man who spoke to me in such a manner before. I was genuinely happy and accepted his proposal, marking the start of our relationship. I believed we were on the path to a happy life together. My parents, who were still alive at the time, were overjoyed to learn that I had a boyfriend. My mother even went as far as to share the news with her friends, floating on cloud nine. You've always been so devoted to your art and not interested in boys. There's nothing more gratifying for a parent than to see their child find happiness with someone. That's right. Besides, given my condition, knowing there's someone to look after you, I can depart this world in peace. At that time, my father was battling cancer and had received a terminal diagnosis. Despite this, he fought to see me in my wedding dress. His wish fulfilled, he passed away shortly after the wedding ceremony. Following in my father's footsteps, my mother's health declined, and she entered a facility when I was 31. Though her mind remained sharp, her physical strength waned, and she never regained her vitality in the facility. Eventually, she passed away, leaving behind her final words about reuniting with my father. In the wake of my mother's death, I was engulfed in sorrow and found it difficult to focus on painting. Danny, inexplicably, seemed elated and indulged in drinking. Finally, now all of your mother's inheritance will come to you, right? It's been a long wait. I was getting tired of playing the good son-in-law. Hearing such unbelievable words from a drunken Danny, I was taken aback and asked him to repeat what he had just said. What are you talking about? Are you sane? Considering he had been drinking foolishly at the venue, I wondered if this was just drunken nonsense. However, even as a drunkard's ramblings, his words were inexcusable. With a furrowed brow, I pressed him for an answer, only to be met with his mocking smile. Of course. I had to suck up to your parents, or else I might not get my share of the inheritance. Come on, my name's got to be in the will somewhere, right? Who's got it? A lawyer? Fury rose within me as Danny chuckled dismissively. Here I was, emotionally shattered by my parents' deaths, and he was bringing up money? His insensitivity and callousness left me feeling utterly despondent. Stop it. Don't talk about such things so lightly. Can't you differentiate between what should and shouldn't be said? I rarely allowed myself to speak so emotionally to Danny, but I couldn't contain my anger this time. Hatred surged within me for Danny, who had put on a pleasant face for my parents only for the sake of inheritance, and then showed his true colors as soon as they passed away. Hearing Danny speak only of money brought to mind a past story Sarah Manning had shared with me. I had heard rumors back then about him being greedy for money. Realizing that those stories from our school days were true chilled my feelings for him instantly. Is shouting really necessary? I was just enjoying my drink and now you've ruined the mood. His attitude, as if I had spoiled the atmosphere, only added to my irritation. I had been patient because he seemed to care about my parents. But if all his actions were motivated by such plans from the beginning, then was his interest in marrying me, pretending to be interested in my art, all a facade? Doubts about all his actions began to surface when Danny made a shocking move. The next day, when I walked into the living room, Danny, unusually up early, was waiting for me, completely sober from the previous night's drinking. It seemed he had something serious to discuss. As expected, he motioned for me to sit across from him. I did as asked, warily eyeing him. Then, Danny placed a signed divorce paper and what appeared to be a contract on the table, starting an unbelievable conversation. I was too drunk to talk properly yesterday. Let's talk seriously now. Did you check with the lawyer about the will? I couldn't understand how he could still talk about money after what had happened. Didn't he remember I told him to stop? Not to mention his disrespectful comments about my mother yesterday. How much does he remember, and what was said in the heat of the moment? No. Even if said impulsively, insulting my mother is unforgivable. I won't let those words be forgotten. With that thought, I angrily confronted him. After being told not to talk about it yesterday, how can you so casually bring it up again? And you called my mother an old hag without any apology. Don't shout, it's hurting my head. If calling her an old hag bothered you, I apologize. My bad. Is that okay, now? What kind of apology is that? His insincere apology only fueled my anger further. I continued to press him, but Danny showed no sign of genuine remorse. The conversation remained at an impasse. Realizing we were getting nowhere, I stopped pressing him and shifted the topic back to the inheritance issue. I haven't contacted anyone, nor have I heard anything. How can I even think about inheritance when we haven't even started sorting through her belongings? My mother just passed away, you know. I see. Then, sign this contract. What? Shocked by the document he presented, which stated that all inheritance matters would be handled by Danny and that I would not interfere, and even mentioned divorce if breached, I was speechless. I'll handle the inheritance distribution. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. The inheritance that becomes yours is also mine, right? So, I should be free to do whatever I want with your stuff. What's yours is mine, and spouses share their property, right? I'm offering to handle it because you're not capable. You should be grateful. Hearing his words, something snapped inside me. Without signing the contract, I turned towards my room, ready to leave the house. Hey, wait. What are you doing? Sign it. If you don't, we're getting a divorce, you know? Are you listening? Yes, I hear you. That's why I'm getting ready to leave the house now. Huh? He must have thought I would quietly sign. The unexpected response seemed to freeze him in place, and I almost laughed. Hey, what are you talking about? Divorce, you know? Splitting up? Do you understand what that means? I told you I understand. I'm sorting my things, so don't bother me. Years of pent-up frustration and dissatisfaction reached a tipping point when I saw Danny yesterday. The contract was the final straw. There was no way we wouldn't divorce after this. Ignoring a dumbfounded Danny, I quickly started packing. Danny tried to stop me, but I paid him no heed. In his panic, he seemed incapable of observing his surroundings calmly. Without him noticing, I took the divorce papers and decided to leave the house we had lived in for many years. Well, thank you for everything up until now. What? Wait a second. Ignoring Danny's calls, I got into a car I had arranged beforehand and fled to my parents' house. Then, I headed to the bank where Danny worked to carry out a certain plan. Aren't you Mr. Hansen's wife? Danny had taken consecutive days off for the funeral arrangements. It was only natural for the employees to be surprised by the sudden appearance of his wife. Thank you for everything. Is the branch manager available? I have something to discuss, so it would be helpful if you could call them. I asked to see the branch manager and informed them of my intentions with a smile. Oh, Mrs. Hansen. What brings you here? No need to call me that anymore. I'm a complete stranger now, not his wife. Anyway, I have something to discuss with you. Announcing my divorce out of the blue caused a stir in the bank. Ignoring the shocked reactions around me, I continued my conversation. I'd like to cancel the account with $300 million in it. Also, please cancel my personal savings account right now. I don't think I'll be needing your services anymore. What? The sudden request visibly shocked the branch manager. It didn't take long for another employee, realizing the gravity of the situation, to call Danny. Danny, disheveled and in his home clothes, rushed to the bank in a panic. Hey, what are you doing making decisions on your own? Danny, please calm down. Let's go to the reception room. Mrs. Kate, please come too. The branch manager, unsure of how to address me following the divorce news, led both Danny and me to the reception room. The rest of the staff looked at Danny with dismay, whispering amongst themselves. Danny, feeling the weight of unwanted attention, glared at me as if to say I was causing unnecessary trouble. However, I didn't meet his gaze and followed the branch manager with a firm demeanor. Once we were seated in the reception room, the manager, puzzled by the situation, asked for clarification. So, you want to cancel all accounts you have with us? What's going on? Exactly as I said. I want to cancel all the accounts I have under my name. Hey, what's this about canceling accounts? I wasn't informed. Of course, he wouldn't be. I hadn't discussed anything with Danny before bringing it up with the branch manager. The branch manager then explained the situation to Danny once more. She's asking to cancel all her deposit accounts following your divorce. What's going on, Danny? I hadn't heard anything about a divorce. No. I haven't agreed to any divorce. We're not divorced yet. She's just saying that on her own. As I listened to his clueless remarks, I couldn't help but laugh. Danny glared at me as if asking what was so funny. What are you talking about? We're divorced. I signed the divorce papers you left in the living room and submitted them to the city hall. What? Clearly, Danny had no idea that I had taken the divorce papers from the living room. Discovering that the divorce had been processed, Danny was shocked, and the branch manager was equally bewildered, looking at us in confusion. You were the one who signed and stamped it first, right? Why the surprise? You wanted a divorce, acted on it. And I also can't imagine spending the rest of my life with someone like you. Our interests were aligned, and with the divorce processed, there's no division of assets. Since the house is in my name, I'd like you to leave within 3 days. Otherwise, I'll have to charge you with trespassing or force an eviction. Wait, just a minute. How can you just finalize the divorce like that? That was all just bluster. The contract was just a bluff to get you to sign. Anyone could see that. A contract? The branch manager had been observing our marital spat, probably thinking it wise not to intervene lest he get caught in the crossfire. However, the mention of the contract made him unwittingly voice his confusion, looking at Danny for an explanation. But Danny was hardly going to be honest about it. Despite his incompetence, his affable demeanor had previously covered for his shortcomings. Admitting to this would jeopardize the one thing he had going for him, possibly making it untenable for him to remain at the workplace. Realizing Danny's silence, I gleefully informed the branch manager of the situation. Actually, my mother passed away. And he presented me with a contract threatening divorce unless I let him handle the inheritance distribution. That was the last straw for me, so we're divorced now. What? No. That's not, it was just. I was just being greedy. It was supposed to be a bad joke. Despite his frantic explanations, it was clear the branch manager wasn't buying it. Danny's actions had shocked him, and he was now seen in a new, unflattering light. Noticing the manager's appalled gaze, Danny stumbled over his words, trying to navigate this precarious situation. However, I wasn't about to let him off easy. I continued to speak, stringing together words to corner Danny even further. After going as far as signing it, did you really think I would just laugh off your reckless behavior? After you disparaged my mother as an old hag the night before, and openly declared you were nice to my parents just for the inheritance. Forgot about that, have you? With a mischievous grin planned to provoke Danny, I revealed truths that diminished his character. The branch manager looked at him with disdain upon hearing this. Danny, flustered by the manager's gaze, darted his eyes around, his face turning pale. It was as if he was thinking, I need to do something, or my reputation will be ruined. His desperation was palpable. But I wasn't going to let him off easily. I was ready to deliver another blow to him. So, I'd like to close all accounts associated with Danny, including the personal savings account I had before we were married, and also cancel the account with $300 million in it. $300 million? He probably thought a personal account wouldn't be much of an issue. But at the mention of $300 million, Danny couldn't hide his astonishment. How do you have that much money from those old paintings? That doesn't make sense. It's simple. My main job isn't that. I have money because of my other profession. What do you mean that's not your main job? Sighing deeply, I pulled a business card from my bag and handed it to him. This is my real job. Painting is more of a hobby, almost a side job. CEO. Is this your parents' company name? You took over that company from your mother. In front of the branch manager, Danny blurted out, your mother's company. Immediately regretting his words. But it was too late. The branch manager glared at Danny, who lacked any sense of decency, with a stern expression. But Sarah was supposed to be the president of that company. Why are you the CEO? I wonder how you came to know about Sarah. I never mentioned anything about the company, did I? I kept quiet about being connected to Sarah as well. How did you find out, I wonder? Seeing Danny hastily cover his mouth in panic, sweat began to bead on his forehead. To him, I disclosed a shocking truth I had learned from Sarah. The answer is simple. It's because you started making advances towards Sarah with money in mind, right? She told me over the phone just now that you approached her on social media. Dragging my mother into the conversation. Saying this, I began to play a recorded conversation I had with Sarah's permission, which detailed the day he contacted her, including attempts to invite her to a hotel. Hearing this, the branch manager's face twisted in disbelief, and Danny turned deathly pale. Completely at a loss for words. You didn't know Sarah and I are friends. You probably thought I was just some acquaintance who took over my mother's company. Nothing more, right? Unfortunately for you, Sarah and I have been best friends and inseparable since childhood. I kept silent about being the president precisely because I anticipated something like this happening. Realizing he had been outsmarted by me, Danny was left unable to respond. Sarah is what you'd call a figurehead president. The company is mine, owned by its founding president. Your mistake was approaching Sarah without doing your homework. That's where your luck ran out. As I laughed mockingly at Danny, The branch manager cleared his throat and glared at him before speaking. Danny, it's become quite clear to me what kind of person you are at home. It's deeply disappointing. Your actions will undoubtedly cause our bank's revenue to plummet. Wait, please, manager. I'll talk to Kate, we'll sort this out, I promise. So please, spare me. There's nothing to discuss between us. And my decision to close the accounts here won't change. At that moment, the branch manager turned back to me and offered a solution. If we were to fire this man from our bank, would you consider not closing your accounts? What? Shocked by the manager's proposal, Danny couldn't believe his ears. I hadn't expected such an offer either and looked on interestedly. We would prefer not to lose your business. When weighing the importance of keeping your accounts versus keeping him employed, it's clear we value our relationship with our customers more. He's been a source of complaints at work, and we've been struggling with how to deal with him. If keeping your business means letting him go, we're prepared to do so. That's a violation of labor laws. I'll report you to the Labor Standards Bureau. Hearing this, the branch manager turned to reveal Danny's misconduct. Feel free to try. In turn, we'll file complaints about your disgraceful behavior towards female employees and bullying of juniors. You're mistaken if you think I wasn't aware. If you decide to take legal action, we'll hire an attorney and take appropriate measures. Realizing everything was exposed, Danny deflated completely, regretfully holding his head. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Why? Ignoring his pitiful murmur, I coldly concluded our confrontation. The price of using people for your greed always comes back to haunt you. All of this, it's the seeds you sowed yourself. Reflect on it and accept your punishment. This marked the end of the long battle between me and Danny. He was subsequently fired from the bank and had to leave my house, despite his pleas to reconsider the divorce. Threatening to call the police made him hastily retreat to his parents' home. However, I had already informed his parents about everything, leading to his disownment. The saga didn't end there. I consulted a lawyer about his abusive statements and submitted all the evidence I had secretly collected. We decided to sue for damages. Sarah also sued him for his persistent invitations and harassment with his extravagant spending habits. Danny was broke and now lives a life of poverty in a tiny apartment, working tirelessly to pay off debts. Having reclaimed my peaceful life, I find both my work and personal life fulfilling. Kate, you've been really vibrant lately. Your art and your expressions, everything's brighter. Maybe it's because you've been by my side, Sarah? My brush feels alive, and I'm just loving painting right now. My skill as an artist had visibly improved. An antique art dealer among my clients highly praised my work, leading to a surge in popularity and the opportunity to hold my own exhibition. With Sarah's help, the company also flourished, thanks to Sarah's efforts, growing into a globally recognized premier automobile manufacturer. Fittingly, I too contribute by covering for Sarah's work. And now we support each other in preserving the company my mother left behind.